What's up, fellow shots to the domers? We have a unique episode for you today. It's just going to be yours truly on the solo cast. There's a topic that I've been talking about a lot on my Instagram with friends, and I actually did a hashtag Mindset Monday IGTV live with my friend James on this topic, which is how to beat self doubt. And the reason why I wanted to do a solo cast on this topic was because I feel as though so often when we talk about beating self doubt or building more self confidence, we don't get actionable strategies or tactics or steps that we can take to actually improve our self confidence and to actually quiet that voice of self doubt or that voice that is known commonly as imposter syndrome. If you've listened to Shots to Dome before, you are very well acquainted with imposter syndrome, that asshole voice in our head, and how so many of our guests have been able to quiet that voice to achieve some amazing things in their life. And that's what I want to do with this solo cast, is to give you strategies that you can use in your life to beat self-doubt and build more self-confidence. So diving right in, the first step, this is an easy one to take, and you've probably seen something like this on social media. Remember that you've gotten through 100% of your bad days. I've even made an Instagram post about this because it is so true and it helps me out. And it's an easy step to take because in those moments where we have a stressful day or a busy day or something comes up that's unexpected, it's very easy to get stressed out, get anxious about that. However, if we simply remind ourselves that no matter what, we have always gotten through 100% of those days, it can remind our brain what it's already accomplished. And again, as you know, if you listen to Shots to the Dome frequently, we talk about how our brains are psychocybernetic. All of that means is we can prime our brains. And so the example I often use, if you're an avid listener, this is going to be something you've heard a ton, but if I told you to look for blue cars, I'm priming your brain. And now, like magic, you're going to see blue cars. I know we all played this game when we were younger. The cool part about this is we can actually prime our own brains and sort of tell it what to look for. And so, in those moments where we're feeling stressed, where we're feeling anxious, where we're feeling overwhelmed, if we can simply remind our brains, remind ourselves that we've gotten through these moments before, there's a ton of power in that. You know me, I'm a big sports guy, so please forgive the sports analogies, but in any big competition, so I'm talking about World Series, national championships, the NBA finals, games of that nature, what do they always talk about? They always talk about the team that's been there before. So, for instance, in college football, you have the perennial powerhouses like the universities of Alabama or Ohio State, teams like Clemson, who are seemingly always in the national title hunt. Whenever you watch those games, they're probably playing a team that isn't there as frequently, that isn't making the national championship as frequently. And so the commentators, the pundits on TV will say, well, Alabama's been here before, or hey, Ohio State was at this game last year. The reason why they're saying that is because there's power in that. There are players on the team who probably played in that game the year before. There are coaches on that team who coached their players through that game the year before. And that gives those teams and those players a leg up on their competition because ... they've been there before. And so that's the first step that I want you to lean into and do for yourself. Remind yourself that you've gotten through 100% of your bad days and you're going to get through this as well. So that's the first thing that I want you to remember. These next two steps are actual legit strategies that you can use in your life to play offense against self-doubt and start to build that self-confidence. So the first one is called a highlight reel. I actually borrowed this from the book It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad, which I highly recommend that you read. It is written by Russell Wilson's mindset coach. Russell Wilson, if you're a big NFL fan, he's the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. He's won a Super Bowl for them. Trevor Moawad is also the mindset coach for the University of Alabama football team and the FSU football team, Florida State University football team, just to name a few. He also does work with myriad other individuals and teams. And he wrote a book about neutral thinking. I don't want to give away the whole thing because I think the book is powerful. It's a very quick read. Yes, it is sports heavy, but there are other examples and analogies that he uses in the book for those of you who aren't big sports fans. However, one tactic that he talked about in the book is creating your own highlight reel. And so what I'm going to recommend that you do, and what I do for myself, quite honestly, open your phone, pull up your notes app, and literally write every single accomplishment that you've achieved from when you were a little kid to now. I'm talking the play that you were in when you were 6 years old, where you didn't have any lines, but your parents are super proud of you and you remember that moment. Write that down. That 4.0 grade point that you got in middle school that your parents were super excited about, or that test that you aced, or that AP test that you crushed, write that down. The instrument that you played when you were in middle and high school and had seasonal performances and you crushed that, write those down. If you achieved any sort of success in sports growing up or athletics, definitely write that down. If you were the first in your family to go to college, add that. If you recently got a promotion, if you have the job of your dreams, if you transition into a new relationship that is way better than a relationship you were in previously, write all of those down. You're going to have a very long list, and that's the point. And so then when you're feeling down, when you're feeling like you're not capable of doing whatever it is you set your mind out to do, I want you to go in your notes app and pull up your highlight reel and literally watch, quote unquote, your highlight reel via the notes app in your phone. Like I said, I borrowed this from the book, It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad, because he had Russell Wilson do this. If you're a sports fan, this will make a lot of sense. If you're not a sports fan, it's easy to understand. I'm just going to explain it real quick. Russell Wilson, he won a Super Bowl, right? The next year, his team, the Seattle Seahawks, they were back in the Super Bowl. He was on like the 4 or 5 yard line, and he had a chance to score the winning touchdown. He threw an interception that ended the game and ended the Super Bowl. So he was the guy who threw the interception that ended the Super Bowl. So that summer, to help with his mindset, Trevor and his team went back and put together every game-winning drive that Russell had from when he was in high school, every game-winning fourth quarter drive from high school through college. And this is a fun fact because I'm a big Wisconsin fan, because my parents grew up, or they rather went to the University of Wisconsin. So I grew up a big Badger fan. Russell Wilson went to North Carolina State, and then he transferred to the University of Wisconsin. Over both of those teams, Russell Wilson's mindset coach put together the highlight reel of him with those fourth quarter game-winning drives. And then, of course, he had many of those moments as a professional football player in the NFL. The reason why he put these all together was he showed it to Russell every single morning this summer after he threw the interception to lose the Super Bowl, to remind Russell that this is what he does. Yes, that interception sucked and it was an outlier, but his highlight reel, literally what he was looking at every day, was showing something counter to the interception. It was showing that Russell actually wins those types of games. So it was a reminder of who he really is, despite the potential, the loss that he just had. So we can use that in our own life. The fun little extra part about that is if one is in the position to throw the interception in the Super Bowl, they're also in the position to win the Super Bowl with a touchdown pass. So that's something good to remember as well. When we are super stressed, when we're anxious, when we feel overwhelmed, we can kind of sit back for a sec and be grateful for that overwhelm, or be grateful for the ability to continue to push ourselves forward. So the highlight reel is a big one. Highly recommend that you create that. Keep it in your phone. The next tactic is going to be very similar, and it's something that I call a smile file. I actually developed this when I was working a 9-to-5 in corporate America, and I created an email folder that was literally called Smile File. And I would save every single email that I got from a client or a colleague or a coworker or a friend that shouted me out, or talked about how great I was doing, or how great of a member of the team I was, or the impact that I was making. And I kept all of those emails in my Smile File, and I would go into that folder anytime I felt down, or anytime I felt less than, or anytime I felt like I wasn't making a difference in my role at work. And you can do this same thing regardless of what you do. If you work in a career that's very email heavy, boom, just solve this for you. You have your Smile File. If you are a coach like myself now, you can save every single positive WhatsApp, every single positive DM, every single positive text that you get from clients shouting you out for how well you're doing as a coach. And in those moments that you feel low and you feel like you're not a good coach, I want you to go into your Smile File. And so when you're doing it that way, you can take screenshots of those messages and then save them in an album on your phone. So very similar to how you're going to save your highlight reel in your notes app, I want you to create a photo album in your phone that's called Smile File, and then save all of those screenshots in the Smile File. And again, anytime that you feel down or anytime that you feel you're not making a difference or anytime you feel like you're not progressing, I want you to open up the smile file and remind yourself how well you're doing. Similar to what we were talking about as far as reminding our brains of who we really are, the highlight reel and the smile file will do the same thing. So for real, I do this as well. Anytime I'm down or I have a rough day or I'm in a funk, I will pull out the highlight reel. I will pull out the smile file. What's cool is I only get like a quarter or a third of the way down the highlight reel, or I only look at 3 to 5 messages in the smile file before I feel a lot better. And it trains the brain to realize how well we're doing and to realize how we're actually doing in life. Because so often we are very myopic as humans and we're really in our heads and we're down on ourselves. It happens. It's just seemingly a part of life. And also, if I can go on a tangent with evolutionary biology, for eons, literally thousands of years, humans had to keep an eye out for disaster. We had to keep an eye out for threats because that's what kept us safe. However, now living in 2021 America or the world, we don't have as many of those threats to look out for anymore. And so we don't necessarily need to be on high alert or think everything is going to be disastrous because we're living in a much safer, much peaceful environment these days. And so we need to retrain our brains. We need to reprogram our brains to think something different. So that's where these tactics come from. So those last two, the highlight reel and the smile file, those are ones that I want you to act on, and they're going to make a huge impact, positively so, in your life. These next two strategies are similar in and of themselves, but they're going to be more fluid in terms of you're going to have to learn a little bit more about these to then be able to use them. So the first one is your love language. You may have heard this thrown around. You may have heard it on a podcast here before. You may have taken a love language quiz with you and your partner to determine how to love on each other. So for instance, if you're in a relationship, highly recommend that you take the love language just simply because you're going to be able to connect with your partner more. For instance, if your partner takes this quiz and their love language is gifts, now you know how to love on them. And so now you can say, oh, hey, great, babe just accomplished XYZ. I'm going to buy her a gift, or I'm going to get her favorite pair of sneakers, or I'm going to get her this cool thing that she likes, because that's going to be a way for me to express love for my partner. On the other side, if you take the quiz and your love language is words of affirmation, you can relay this to your partner and be like, hey, babe, I really need support or to be built up or to be told I'm doing a good job. And that's how I feel loved. Or again, leaning on love, saying things like, I love you, I'm always going to be with you, I love our life, things of that nature. That's how that person is going to feel loved. Where we sometimes don't get the most out of love languages is when we don't apply them to ourselves. And that is the strategy that I want to highlight here. When you learn your love language, yes, of course, tell your partner, because they're going to be able to love on you in your language. But it's also an opportunity for you to love on yourself. And so, for instance, I am a words of affirmation person. That's my top love language. I've, of course, relayed this to Dayla, and she's great at always hyping me up. How can I love on myself in the way that suits me? I have Post-it notes. You may have heard this on a podcast previously, so apologies if I'm just restating, but I have a few Post-it notes around me on my desk. One is, hi, Sean, you're making a difference. You know that if you help just one person, it's all worth it, ... And you're already doing it, winky face. Yes, the winky face is there. But I have this Post-it note to remind me of how well I'm doing and the difference that I'm already making when I'm feeling down on myself. And it's a word of affirmation. It's a mantra, if you will. That's another way that you can game this if you're a words of affirmation person. Have a mantra that you can run through in your head when you feel down, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel like the world is bigger than yourself. For instance, if you're a coach, your mantra could be, I'm a great coach, I know what I'm doing. I'm a great coach, I know what I'm doing. Or I'm a great coach, I've been able to impact X number of lives. I'm a great coach, I've been able to impact X number of lives. Again, we do this over and over and over again, but it's going to prime our brain to actually see the truth, which is we're doing a great job. If you have a different love language, like let's go back to the gifts one, buy yourself something special when you hit certain milestones. So obviously, maybe don't go willy-nilly at the store or online, but in those moments where you achieve success at work, where you finished a project that you've been working really hard on, treat yourself. If you are an entrepreneur and you hit a revenue level or a revenue goal that you've been trying to hit for a while, treat yourself. You can do the same thing for all of the love languages. So for instance, another love language is touch. Get yourself a massage. Massage your hands yourself. I do this all the time. If I'm watching TV with Dayla and I'm sitting on the sofa, a lot of the times I will massage my fingers and my hands. Also, because I do a lot of work on my phone and I do a lot of work on a computer. And if you do that as well, if you're nodding along with me that you do the same type of work, go ahead and massage your hands from time to time. I promise you're going to feel better because you're loving on yourself in the way that's going to resonate with you the most. So love language, learn your love language, take the quiz. You can just Google it, love language quiz, whatever pops up, take that quiz, learn your love language, and then love on yourself in that way. The next tactic, like I said, is very similar to learning your love language. It's learning your Enneagram. The Enneagram is a personality test. So if you're sitting there thinking, Sean, I've taken myriad personality quizzes and exams, I really haven't gotten anything out of this, I would highly recommend that you try the Enneagram and then stop because you don't need to endlessly be taking quizzes. However, the Enneagram, unlike other personality quizzes and tests that I've taken in the past, actually asks about our experience on this earth. And so a lot of the questions aren't so much the when were you born, what's your sign type, but it's how would you handle this situation? What do you feel like your childhood was? What were these moments via the quiz that you can answer to learn more about yourself? That's the Enneagram. And then they chunk us up into one of 9 different buckets. Basically, if you're into the Enneagram, you know your Enneagram number. So for instance, I'm a 3, Dayla's a 1, my dad's an 8, my mom's a 9. We really love the Enneagram, as you can tell, and we've shared it with friends and family. And it's a great way to not only understand ourselves, but to understand others, but to bring it back to ourselves, because that's the point of this solo cast. Once you learn the Enneagram, you're going to find that, one, you're not alone. So a lot of the things that you might feel and think day to day that you think you're alone in, there are other people that sort of fall into that same bucket as you. And if you get into the Enneagram and look online for resources or follow one of the number of Enneagram focused accounts that there are on Instagram and Facebook, you're going to find more about what makes you tick and more about not only why you're not alone, but in those moments where you feel down, what you can actually do to remedy it. So for instance, something that really resonated with me, and I actually have this as a saved story series on my Instagram, is Enneagram self-care wheels. This was something that was so profound and really taught me a lot about mine, because once I stumbled upon it, it gives a pie chart of things that we can do that lean into self-care that are going to resonate the best for us via our Enneagram. And what stuck out for me as a 3, just being completely honest, the biggest part of the pie, the majority by far, said hang out with people who can see behind the mask. And that really resonated with me because I feel as though, and I've talked about this on podcasts in the past, I've created I think we all have to a certain degree, but I've created a mask of, it's basically my representative. Like if you were to meet me on the street, you're going to meet my representative. You're going to meet Sean kind of in a mask. However, I have a few choice friends. I'm an only child, so my parents know who I am. Dayla obviously sees it. The Sean that isn't really caring what other people think, or the Sean that isn't editing himself. That's what my Enneagram wheel was talking about. They're like, hang out with more people like that, where you don't have to be as on all the time. And that really resonated with me, in addition to the other stress relieving tactics that were on that self-care wheel. And for real, check it out. Again, I have a saved story series on my Instagram where you can check out your own self-care Enneagram wheel. Check it out. I promise, when you look yours up, for instance, if you're like an Enneagram 6 and you look up the one for 6, there are going to be some stress relieving activities that resonate with you. And you're going to learn more about what those are. So then you can use them consistently in your life. And that's where it comes back around to relieving stress, relieving anxiety, and beating self-doubt is learning more about yourself and what makes you tick. And that's where the Enneagram, not only the self-care wheel, but learning about your Enneagram in total can be a big help, because it does talk about what to look out for. So again, me being an Enneagram 3, we can, as 3s, sometimes do so much while thinking we're not accomplishing anything. And so that was really the first time I had seen it written out like that. It really resonated with me. And so now I can use it as a reminder in those moments where it's 8 o'clock on a Friday and I'm super overwhelmed and I'm stressed from the week and I don't feel like I've gotten a lot done. Because of the Enneagram, I can take a step back, fall back into that macro view and be like, wait a minute, Sean, you're doing a great job. You've been achieving a lot. You've been doing a lot. Don't be so hard on yourself. And that's where the Enneagram can help. Okay, so let's recap. The first thing we talked about was how to remind yourself that you've gotten through 100% of your bad days. Nothing has taken you down yet. And to get a little woo-woo, because y'all know me, the universe always has your back. And if you don't believe that statement, how many times have you gotten through your rough days? Basically, how many times has the universe or God, if you're religious, had your back and helped you get through your challenges and your obstacles? It's important to remember that. So for real, really easy one. Whenever you're stressed, whenever you're overwhelmed, whenever you feel like there's too much going on, take a step back. Remember what Sean said. Take a moment and be like, hey, I've gotten through this before. Just need to keep pushing forward. The second one is going to be a highlight reel. Create a highlight reel in the notes app of your phone. List every single accomplishment you've ever made in your life and save that in your notes app and go back and look at it. I would honestly say, if you've never done this before and you've been dealing with a lot of self-doubt or imposter syndrome, create your highlight reel and look at it when you wake up every other day for the next week or two. Shoot me a note. Let me know how you feel. that's your prescription. Come back to me and let me know how it's going. The next one, very similar, is going to be your smile file. So any message you get, text message, WhatsApp, DM, email, carrier pigeon, save it all via screenshots and put it into an album in your phone called Smile File. Or if you work in an office, you get a lot of emails, you work in email heavy, you work in an email heavy environment, create a Smile File email folder and put all of the positive emails about you into that Smile File. And similar to the highlight reel, break into that Smile File when you're feeling down, when you're feeling less than, when you feel like you are not achieving or you are not at the level that you want to be. The next one is going to be learning your love language and applying that love language to yourself. In addition to applying the love language to your partner and telling them what your love language is, I want you to love on yourself using your love language. And the last one is knowing your Enneagram. That's a personality test. You can Google it. It's ENNEA Gram, ENNEA Gram. You can Google that. You can look it up on Instagram. Highly recommend checking out my Save Story series on the self-care tactics for your Enneagram, because when you learn more about yourself, you can learn not only how to manage your own proverbial shit, but how you can then interact with others and help them interact with you too. It's a great hack. We have friends who love the Enneagram. Shout out to Kaylin Piles. She and Carter are big Enneagram fans. It works, and that's why we're talking about it. Those are the steps and the strategies that I would recommend to help you beat self-doubt, to play offense against it, and to increase your self-confidence. I promise these work. I use them for myself. I use them with my life coaching clients, and I want you to use it and see the same success as well. If these were helpful, I would love if you shared this episode. I know I say that a ton, guys, but for real, if you found this helpful, it'll probably help somebody else out. So please, if you found it helpful, please share it. If you share it on Instagram, please tag me. I would love to repost you. If you want to hear this again, just in a different way, check out my friend James Manley's Instagram. He has an IGTV that we did on hashtag Mindset Monday that was all about this. And honestly, it was through working with my life coaching clients on this. It was through having that IGTV with James. It was through doing these things myself that I felt like it would be valuable to record a solo cast. So hopefully it was. I'm looking forward to doing these more in the future. I appreciate y'all bearing with me, because to be completely honest, I was nervous for this. It's getting out of my comfort zone, which we always talk about being the key to success. When you get out of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. And I wanted to try to practice what we preach here at DLD Nation. Thank you again for listening. I hope you found a ton of value out of this. And this has been yet another episode of Shots to the Dome.